Everyday Orthodox with your host, Elisa Bielatich-Davis. We get together on Sunday nights to meet everyday Orthodox Christians. We're hoping to get to know the members of the body of Christ across all of our various jurisdictions and regions. We may worship in various languages or even on different calendars, but we have so much in common. Come get to know someone new and see how they're living out this Orthodox faith in another corner of the world. After all, every person is an icon of Christ, and as we'll see, every person has a story to tell. If you have a question for tonight's guest, we invite you to call in and join the conversation at 1-855-237-2346. That's 1-855-AF-RADIO. Now, here's Elisa.
It is Sunday, September 17th, 2023, and we are live on Ancient Faith Radio. Welcome to Everyday Orthodox. I'm Elisa Bielatich-Davis. And, we get together here every Sunday evening to meet another everyday Orthodox Christian. And it's sort of like building community through conversation. We're all split up in different jurisdictions, worshiping in different languages, sometimes even on different calendars. But we're all Orthodox Christians, and I think it's a beautiful thing for all of us to have an opportunity to get to know one another and to feel like maybe we have some friends in some other parts of the country or in some other jurisdictions. A lot of us actually are converts, and we have interesting stories about how we came into the church, but also a whole lot of Orthodox Christians in America were born Orthodox. Maybe they were born abroad, and they have a fascinating story of how they got here, or maybe they were born into a big fascinating ethnic family. And I think you'll enjoy tonight's guest because it's going to be something like that. But we have a wonderful guest tonight who's a Lebanese American. Her name is Margaret Staiman Ewing, and I think you're going to love her. And I want you to know that Matushka Trudy Richter is right here in the studio tonight in Indiana. I'm in Texas, but I say right here. She's in the studio producing the show. You can call in at 1-855-AF-RADIO. That's 1-855-237-2346. And Matushka Trudy will answer the phone, and she'll patch you right through if you have a question for our guest. So you are welcome to do that anytime. And, of course, keep in mind we are streaming live on YouTube on the Ancient Faith Ministries page, so you can actually see our faces there. It's also archived there later. And, of course, we're live on the Ancient Faith Radio app and on the website and on the Ancient Faith Facebook Live thing, and so we're all over the place. But of course, the podcasts are also archived on the site. So now tonight, this will be our 197th episode, our 197th guest on Everyday Orthodox, and I'm pretty excited about it. A while back, I made a promise that when we hit 200 episodes, I would be the guest, and I'd come on and I'd tell my story. So I found us a guest host. It's my daughter, Helena. She's 20. She's hilarious. And hopefully she knows not to ask, really obnoxious questions, but we'll find out. But so tonight's show is 197, and when we get to 200 on October 8th, join us, and we'll have a big sort of milestone celebration with an unusual structure, I assure you. But okay, tonight's guest, Margaret Staiman Ewing. She is in Niagara Falls, New York, and as I mentioned, she grew up in a big Lebanese family. And she's just wonderful. She's full of life. She's her church historian. And she has some really amazing stories. And I don't want to spoil any of them, so I'm going to let her tell all of them. But Margaret, welcome to the program.
Thank you so very much.
It's so good to have you on the show. I'm excited about it. So tell us, I want to hear your whole story right from the beginning. So tell us, where were you born?
Jesus will be here forever.
We'll have an abbreviated version. We'll do the short version, but the 1 hour version. But tell me, so where were you born?
In Niagara Falls, New York.
That's right.
I was born here. My parents were sweethearts, and it was a beautiful story. My daddy came home on leave just before the war ended and said to my mother, "Sweetheart, we're going to get married on Sunday." And they got married on Sunday.
No.
It was a Friday. My mother had just gotten laid off from the Bell Aerospace. She had bought a new suit and was going to take it back to L.L. Burgers. And her mother said to her, "No, you're not." And Daddy came and said, and talked to my Jiddi and my mother's father, and said, I want to marry Georgette. Even their names went together, Georgette George and George Slaiman. You couldn't get them any closer than that. I have one brother, Amo, and who is a delightful person. And I have 3 children. Thomas, who was a captain and just retired from Niagara Falls Police Department as head of the crime scene unit. Gretchen is our middle child, and she is a kindergarten teacher in Cheektowaga Sloan, and she thinks she's the mama. She hasn't figured out that she's not the mama yet. And Mary Beth. Mary Beth is our baby. She is a school counselor in Virginia. My husband, Joe, is a wonderful man. Just very, very lucky because he rode right with the family right from day one when he came and met all the aunties. And we've been married 53 years.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. So he came, and there were a lot of aunties. You have a big family there, right? All in Niagara Falls?
I do. I would tell the story, but it might offend some people, so I will not tell the story of when he came. I will tell you this much. They asked my mother in very, I don't want to say colorful language because it was not, where did she find him? And my mother answered them and said, he's the perfect fit for her.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I bet they came around to it, didn't they?
They did. Well, it took them only 2 minutes.
There you go. Well, so tell me, was your mom born in Lebanon? Like, at what point did your family come over? Because you've got a lot of family here, right? So maybe they've been.
Oh, I do. My mother was born. My mother was born here. She is first generation. My grandparents came through. My Sipti came through Ellis Island. My Jibdi, my grandfather, came through Canada. Okay. And they were not, it's from what digging I've done, I don't think they were betrothed to each other. My Jibdi never talked about how he met my Sipti. Now, my Sipti was from Beirut, and my Jiddi was from Brahma. Okay. And so whether they knew each other when they came, I don't know. Surprisingly, they didn't talk very much about their background. What amazed me was that they felt that they should be, I can't think of the right word, assimilated to American culture. In the home, they spoke Arabic, but outside, they spoke English. Wow. My mother was fluent in Arabic. My daddy could read and write Arabic, and he was the first secretary of the church to translate they used to write the Arabic. They used to write the minutes in Arabic, and my daddy would translate them to English.
Oh, wow.
So they were just, my parents belonged together, George and Georgette. Couldn't get
I love that.
George and Georgette.
That's perfect. So was he also Lebanese?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were both Lebanese from generation to generation to generation.
And was your
I will
dad
tell a little funny anecdote that my husband said. My Sipti on my mother's side was blonde, blue eyes. And according to my husband, some Norwegian came down and got her mother.
Well, it is always strange, isn't it, when you have just the one blonde in the family? We all kind of wonder how that happens. But okay, so is your dad's family close by as well? Like, is this how or where is his family?
His family was from Syria,
Okay.
and he had 2 sisters and 5 brothers. My dad was the oldest. Then came my Uncle Tom. Or no. Then came my Uncle Sal. No, that's wrong. I got it all wrong. But my dad was the oldest.
You know, my dad had 7 brothers, and I cannot guarantee you that I actually know the birth order because it's a lot, right? That's a lot of people.
It's a lot. And family was everything to my dad and to my mother.
That's beautiful. That's very beautiful. So you're born to them. You're the first, right? Are you the oldest?
Yes. I am the oldest. I have one brother. His name is Amo, and he's married to a lovely girl named Cheryl, and they have one child, Justin.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. So as you two were growing up, were you guys close in age?
Yes, we were 2.5 years apart. We lost a brother in between us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Memory eternal. Yeah, that's hard.
Thank you.
But so did you, what kind of a kid were you? Like, what did you like to do when you were a kid?
Oh, my God. I loved to swim, ride my bike. I was a Girl Scout. And I liked to read.
Ah, nice. What kind of books did you read?
They were the Betsy books. They were way back then. Yep. Those were my favorites.
Oh, beautiful.
And Veronica and Archie and Betty and Jughead comics.
I love those. So tell me, all right, so as you're growing up, your dad's working in the church, doing the minutes and translating for the church. Does that mean you guys were active in the church? Did you grow up?
Oh, my God. I thought I grew up in the church. Yeah. The church was my parents' It was where everything took place. It was in the church. My mother was involved in the church, and my daddy was involved in the church. I knew no difference. People that weren't really your cousins were your cousins. My mother was a wonderful baker and cook, and they cooked and baked all the time. And like I said, my daddy was the first English secretary of the church. So I grew up in the church. My people that weren't really my first cousins, I thought were my cousins.
Right. Well,
and my first cousins were like my brothers and sisters.
Yep.
If my aunt slapped me, my mother slapped me.
Yep.
For whatever I did wrong.
Right.
And vice versa.
Do you feel like that's a good way to raise kids, to have like the whole extended family with sort of eyes on? What were the pros and what were the cons, I guess is the question.
Well, the pros were I thought that my first cousins were my brothers. I was the only girl. My cousin Yvonne and I were the only girls. Yes. Do I regret it? No. I'll tell you why. They were there. My family was my family. They shared in every moment of my life. They shared in my good times and they shared in my bad times. When my father died when I was 12, my uncles took over like being my daddy. They made sure that when the father and daughter dance was on, that they were there. And when my mother went to a function after my daddy died, they made sure her dance card was filled and no undesirable asked my mother ever to dance. It is probably the most precious gift that was ever given to me. Family. And my first cousins were like my brothers and my sister.
That's beautiful. That is really beautiful. So as you're all growing up, and may your father's memory be eternal. That's hard to lose your dad at 12. Did you feel like I love, first of all, the idea that you had all of these uncles to fill in. And I recently heard someone talking about that and saying that also in a really big family, you know, if you didn't get along with one of your parents, if you were at odds with them, you had all these other beloved adults in your life that you did get along with. And so it really is an advantage in a lot of ways. But so did you find, like, spiritually, did you find the church a comfort at that time? Because 12 is kind of a funny age. Did you feel kind of angry with God? Or
very, very comforting at that time. I never felt out of place because they were my uncles. They were there for the father and daughter dance and anything going on in church. And our social life was our church. I didn't have a lot of outside friends. The majority of my friends were people that I went to church with. Mm-hmm. And come Sunday, we would always have Sunday dinner, always. And then we'd go visit Jiddy George, but we'd also visit Sippy Slaiman, my father's mother, because her husband had passed. My daddy was was getting ready to go to medical school when his daddy passed, so it was normal to visit my grandparents.
That's beautiful. I can see where that would help cushion a loss, that you had so many people and so much support and so much going on. That is beautiful. So as you grew older, and I assume too, were the kids in your church were probably at your school too, right? Like, did you, or
yes,
it was all the same crowd everywhere you went, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Definitely.
fantastic. That's beautiful. I know a lot of our kids here in Texas, we often find that they're like the only Orthodox one in their school because everybody kind of travels from a distance. But it seems like Niagara Falls is a good size for that. But so, okay, my next question for you. As you became a teenager, were you rebellious at all, or were you a real easy kid?
I was easy.
Yeah.
I might have had a couple days rebellious, but with Georgette, guess what? There was no rebellion.
Oh, no. What was she
brought
like?
You into this world, and she would have taken you out.
Well,
she reminded me that there were only two things to fear in this world: God and a mama.
There you go.
And I passed it down to my children. I said to them, there are only two things to fear: God and your mama.
There you go. I love that. That's beautiful. All right. So you're growing up as a teenager. What did you think your life was? What did you picture for your future when you were like 16 or 17 years old? What did you want to do?
I wanted to be a nurse.
Ah, excellent. Yeah. Oh, very nice. Very nice. All right. So then as you're coming out of high school, what'd you do?
Well, I went to community college. And back then, in the 60s, well, I graduated in 65. I'm 77. I'm 76, forget 77. But I don't look a day over 70.
You do not.
And I went to community college. Back in that era, college was just starting. You got married and made babies. And I met this wonderful man called Joe Ewing. I swear the Lord sent him right to my doorstep. I was meant to be with him because I don't know anybody that could have put up with me as much as he has.
What's he like? What's his personality like?
Quiet, quiet. You got a boisterous broad here, and you got a quiet dude.
It's a good combination, huh? It works.
It was a good combination. It was. We were a good combination in raising the kids. We didn't agree on a whole lot, but when it came to the kids, they were everything. We never disagreed in raising the kids.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's fantastic. So with a name like Ewing, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Joe is not Lebanese or Syrian. How was it?
Oh, no.
Well, he wasn't Orthodox, right? Like, I guess he just sort of wandered in here having no
he never
idea.
Turned Orthodox. Joe never turned Orthodox, but he never objected to the children being raised Orthodox.
Beautiful.
He was a good English boy. His parents were right from England,
Oh, wow.
and like my parents were of Lebanese and Syrian descent. His parents were English. I don't even know if I should tell the story, and I think I'll pass on it. But his parents wondered where he found me, and my family wondered where I found him.
Yeah, I bet. Well, it's a big shocker when you come into contact. Those two cultures are very different, right? On the one hand,
Yeah.
he had that kind of immigrant experience, so that's similar. But otherwise, English culture, Lebanese culture, these are not very similar.
If you watch my Big Fat Greek Wedding,
Yep.
just change the title, My Big Fat Lebanese Wedding. And it's exactly what you grew up in.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock, I think. When you marry into a family like that, you've got the two little, like, pasty white kind of American parents and then the big, huge, crazy family. It's beautiful, though.
Yeah, because not only does your mother slap you and your father, if you've done it and the parents aren't there, your aunt and uncle slap you besides.
That's right. You can't get away. You can't get away from any of it.
You can't get away. And if you sneeze, trust me, everybody in the family knows you sneeze.
Is it still like that now with you, with the next generations? Do you guys watch over
Not
kids?
as prevalent with the next generation. No, that isn't as prevalent as it was in my generation.
Yeah. It's all settling down, huh? It's kind of Americanizing slowly, I bet.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so out of curiosity, I know that when you and I spoke before, there was sort of a big event that impacted your faith when you had the car accident. And I want to talk about the car accident, but I want to wait until after the break. But so before that, I'm just curious, before the car accident, would you say, like, were you a very religious person? I know you went to church. Were you at church, like, really for the community, or were you very prayerful and spiritual, or how was that experience for you?
Do you want a polite answer or an honest answer?
Oh, I want honest.
I was there for the social. I love my religion. I don't want anybody to think that I do not love my religion. I love my religion more than anything. But I was a teenager. There was just all of a sudden, I was the generation that was marrying outside of their nationality. Up to that point, they did not marry outside their generation very much. On my mother's side, two aunts married outside their nationality. And that was before my generation. But in my generation, in my mother's generation, the majority married their own generation, or they might have married a Greek person. But in that
sort of ethnic Orthodox crowd.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you married outside of Orthodoxy, Were they concerned for you? Were they angry? Were they upset? Or did they kind of warm up to him? What happened?
They warmed. The beauty of St. George's, and I don't mean to paint St. George as the perfect parish, but they were a welcoming parish. They were very welcoming to my husband. If they didn't like him, they never said a word to me.
Good.
My mother liked Joe from the first time I brought him home.
Nice. So they looked at him and they said, yeah, this is the guy for Margaret. He can deal with Margaret, so it'll be good.
Yes, yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that. All right, well, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, I really want to hear about, I know that you and I talked in Niagara Falls about the car accident, and I want to make sure that our listeners get a chance to hear that. So we're going to take a break for about a minute, and when we come back, we'll talk about it again. All right?
Everyday Orthodox with Elisa Bielatich Davis will be back in a moment. Give Elisa and her guest a call at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO.
Ancient Faith Publishing is pleased to announce a new release that is part history, part theology, and part devotional. The Story of Jesus, A History and Theology of Christ, explores the complete life and teachings of our Lord, from before his conception in Mary's womb until his ascension. Revered 20th century Egyptian elder and scholar Matthew the Poor wrote many volumes on the subject of Christ's significance, life, and teachings, which translator James Helmy has distilled into one highly readable book that will make a valuable addition to every Christian's library. The Story of Jesus is now available in paperback and ebook at store.ancientfaith.com. That's store.ancientfaith.com.
We're back with Everyday Orthodox with Elisa Bielatich Davis. Do you have a question for Elisa and today's guest? Call in now at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO. Here again is Elisa.
And welcome back to Everyday Orthodox. Keep in mind that you're welcome to call in if you have any questions. You can call 1-855-AF-RADIO. That's 1-855-237-2346. And we are here tonight with Margaret. And Margaret is telling us, we've just been talking about her early married years and those years, but she actually, at one point in her life, was in a car accident. And it was really a beautiful experience in the end, a terrible experience and a good one at the same time, I think. But so, Margaret, tell me the story. So what happened with that?
Well, we had just had coffee. I don't drink coffee, but we had gone to Tim Hortons and they had coffee with my cousins, Tom and Mary Ann. And we were on our way home. We were in front of Niagara Falls High School, and these young men crossed the double line. When the young man that was driving tried to compensate for the mistake, he overshot and he hit us head on. Thanks be to God, my husband was not seriously hurt. He had a couple broken vertebrae, and I took the brunt of the accident. And I don't even remember the car coming towards us at all. I don't remember any part of that. But from what my husband says, they worked on me a long time in the car, and I told them 3 different times I was going to die. I didn't know that until after I woke up. I guess what I need to preface this with is, before the accident, I had lost my faith. But I'll get to that part. So anyways, they put me in the ambulance, and they were debating whether to keep me here in the Falls or go to ECMC. They didn't know, from what I'm told, whether or not I would have even made it to ECMC. So they felt that the best place to take me was ECMC. And according to Joe, if I am correct, he said they weren't going to let him ride in the ambulance. And I guess he told them, if you don't, it'll be 10 times worse with Margaret in the back. So they let him ride in the ambulance. And they took me to ECMC. I did not come. They had called my son Thomas. The most ironical part of it was that Thomas was to be the recording lieutenant that night. But one of the other lieutenants needed a night off, and they had switched. And Lord and thanks be to God, he was not the recording lieutenant.
Because he would have had to show up at the scene, right? He would have shown up at the scene and found you there? That would have been shocking. That would have been terrible.
Yeah.
Well, thank God. So God lines that up a little there.
Thank God he didn't. And he couldn't. They had Porter Road blocked off because of it, and he couldn't get over. But I don't know how he got over, but he did. Anyways, Gretchen was home, I'm assuming, and Mary Beth was in Virginia. So they took me to ECMC, and they didn't know whether or not I was going to make it. I didn't know that, and they took care of me and mended me. During the healing, my first experience was I was underwater, and I could see somebody on a gurney and somebody in a white coat. But I turned around, and there was the light. So instead of staying there to watch, I went towards the light. Well, guess what? None of my relatives were there. All I saw was the light. So I got a little bored, and I turned around and thought I'd go back to where I'd seen somebody on the gurney. So I started, from what I can understand, from what I remember, I was underwater, and I swam towards there, and I thought, no, I'll go back to the light. But you can't. As hard as I tried to go back towards the light, my body would not turn around. It would not allow me to go back. Whether that happened at the beginning, I can only assume it happened at the beginning of the accident. When I got to the hospital, I really don't know. So I guess I stayed and watched them take care of me. The second time, I was again on a gurney, and I could see my husband. My husband was in the middle, and my two daughters were on either side. And my husband had a jacket on that I had bought him, a Ralph Lauren jacket, and I know he had that jacket on because I must have opened my eyes and saw the jacket. The girls looked very distraught from what I remember, and I could hear people clapping, and I could see, I shouldn't say people, I don't know what they were. They're clapping and cheering, and they're jumping over this water. And I kept saying, when is it my turn? And the only thing I heard was a voice that said, it's not your turn. And I must have repeated it. And the third time it was like I went from room to room to room. I don't know where I was. And all I could see was my Mary, and I saw nothing else. But I can honestly tell you, from the first two experiences, you don't make that choice of whether you live or you die. That is predestined. There is no doubt in my mind. This lovely priest came to visit me. He was from St. George Church South in Buffalo. And I said to him, Father, I've lost my faith. But I should, before I say that, the night before I had screamed at my children and said to them, don't ever come back, because they wanted these boots on me and I wanted them off. Well, anyways, Father Jason comes in. Why I didn't scream at him that day, I still don't know. And he was going to visit me, and I said, could you come back for lunch? And he said, yes. So I hung up the phone. He left. I picked up the phone. Now remember, I wasn't going to talk to those two children ever again. He said to Gretchen, bring the tablecloth, bring lunch. Father Jason is coming for lunch. Why she listened to me to this day, I still don't know. Anyways, lo and behold, Father Jason comes. And this is really strange, everybody. I said to him, Father, I've lost my faith. He said, you lost your faith from the accident? I said, no, Father. This was before the accident. I had started to waver about my faith. And he said to me, do you remember the gospel from St. Luke? And the icon of Jesus on one side of the door and no door handle on the other side. He said, Margaret, all you have to do is knock and ask. Well, this is unbeknownst to me. My youngest child had called my Aunt Lucy Shadid, who was like a mama to me. And they came immediately to me. She didn't know that Father Jason had come and talked to me. She comes in, and I told her what had happened. She reiterated every single thing that Father Jason had said to me. When I went to bed that night, the strangest thing happened. It was like something came inside my heart, inside my body, and there was a peace within me, and I started to heal. I was a wild woman prior to Father Jason coming. I won't dare tell you what I had to say, but trust me, I was wild beyond wild.
Wow. Well, I believe it. You were yelling at everybody and telling them to come
I yelled at everybody. In fact, I will tell one funny story. The doctor that took care of me, the orthopedic doctor, I was getting ready to go to rehab, and I had gone to the office to see him. I was still in the hospital. And I said to him, Doctor, I understand that I said some not so nice things to you. And he gets a smirk on his face and he goes, you did. In fact, I won't even repeat what I said. because he was a wonderful, wonderful doctor. That's why I'm walking. And all I think about is what Father Jason said to me. All you have to do is ask. And it was like, I don't want to make a big thing out of it, but I had never experienced anything like that in my life before. Even when my parents passed, I had never experienced anything. And I do believe the Lord puts people in your path when it is needed. I truly do believe that.
Absolutely.
So that's what has happened to me, everybody.
Well, when you say you don't want to make a big thing about it, I mean, it's a big deal. It is a big thing. It's a beautiful thing. And it's important. It's I always think it's interesting how, Jesus says sometimes, that don't worry about what to say. The Holy Spirit will tell you what to say. And I think if a person is really prayerful, that the Holy Spirit can give them words and they don't even know it, right? Like, I'm sure your aunt had no idea that she was saying something that the Holy Spirit told her to say to you, but there you go, right? I mean, I
truly believe that. Why would she show up? She was almost 90 years old, and she said to my Uncle Ed, we have to go right away. Margaret needs.
Oh, wow.
Needs her really well. And there was Aunt Lucy. And it was,
wow.
it was beautiful. Now that I think about it, it was a beautiful, I don't even know the word to put, but what a beautiful, yes I do, what a beautiful memory. I remember her being there and I said, Auntie, you just missed Father Jason. And little did I know that she knew what I had been through. My children, I can't thank my children and my cousin Tom and Mary and the parish of St. George for what they did for my family. It touched my heart so very deep.
What sort of things were they doing for the kids?
Well, they had a healing service. They did a healing service in the emergency room. And my cousin Tom, who was subdeacon and a chanter of St. said, could we do this in church? And Father Paul said yes. So the church had a lot of people in it from what I understand. It was standing room only. Who would have thought that many people would have come for Margaret?
And this is when you were a wild woman.
This is when I was a wild woman. And I mean, I was a wild woman.
Well, I know you must have been, because when I was telling people at your parish you were going to be on the show, they'd be like, oh, careful what she says. And I was like, well, Margaret never says anything off color. I don't know what you mean. Because I only know the new Margaret.
You only know the new Margaret. You're getting the polished version at the moment.
That's right. But so after that experience, and after everybody was taking care of your family and gathering together to pray for you, and I know that's such a special thing. It's kind of an amazing thing to feel like, gosh, all those people came to church to pray just for me, like it is wonderful. It is a wonderful gift. And I think in many of our parishes, in most of our parishes, we really do love each other. And we really are willing to do things like that. But we're still surprised by it somehow, But so would you say that your experiences in church after that, did it feel like God was present to you now going forward? Or is it more like you had this period of time where God was really present to you and that's what you needed to restore your faith?
No, I think my faith is stronger now than it was prior to the accident. I truly believe my faith is stronger.
Thank God.
I truly believe that the Lord puts people in your life at the right time and the right moment. And if you are troubled, all you have to do is ask. It's funny because you might not get the answer right away, but it always seems to come at the right moment, and the door is to open. It's the only way I can explain it.
Yeah. Well, I think we know when we need the answer, but God knows how to line it up at the moment that we can really hear the answer.
Yes.
And some of us are more stubborn than others. So some of us have to be in really big car accidents to get our attention.
It was a big fender bender.
It was. It's terrible. My goodness.
I do have to. It is okay to thank my family, to thank my children, to thank my cousins. They came from all over the country to make sure that my family was okay. And a huge thank you to my cousin Tom and Mary Ann. They never left my family. My children stayed day and night. And I was not pleasant to any of them. The only one I was pleasant to was Mary Beth.
Well, so, that is beautiful. And it's beautiful that your children, even though people had scattered a bit around the country, they came back together. So just like when you lost your daddy and they were all right there for you, they kind of had that same experience, that when their mother was so desperately ill, there was the family right there for them.
Yes.
Thank God.
So very true.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But I could have taken and been bitter, but guess what? I beat the odds. But I will tell a little funny story. My brother said the reason that I beat the odds, that God didn't want me at full price, and the devil didn't want me at half.
Well, when you're a wild woman, it is a little disruptive.
A wild woman.
I love that. Now, how did you get the job at St. George's? Because you're at St. George's North. They're in Niagara Falls, right? Like the original St. George's, not the one in Buffalo. So you're the historian there. How'd you get that job?
I am the historian. Oh, my golly. It's right up my alley. They were looking for a historian, and this lovely person, Richard Chown, said, "You need to ask Margaret Ewing." And they asked if I'd be the historian. And what a gift I got. I got the best gift that anybody could have given me, because after the accident, I retired. And the Board of Education, Niagara Falls Board of Education, asked me to come back to work. Imagine asking Margaret to come back to work after the accident, and I did. But I didn't work every single day, and I needed something. But I never said anything to anybody. And I started, and the pandemic came. It has been a wonderful journey. Unbelievable that they came with. And again, one of our parishioners, Kathy Fidel, she told me, she said, Margaret, when my grandparents came, they came with one suitcase, a Sunday outfit, and the gold. And they did not know the language. And they started here. And what they did, they brought the traditions with them. Yeah. And in 1921, Mr. and Mrs. Mokiber hosted the first meeting to start the church in Niagara Falls, along with Mr. Ferris Fidel and my grandparents. In fact, I have a list of people that were there for the first meeting, and they decided to meet. They would have a visiting priest, and they decided to meet in each other's homes for church when a visiting priest was available. Well, push forward to between 1924 and 1925, they decided they would build a church. The original St. George was on the corner of 13th and South Avenue. When they originally were going to build it, they were only going to build the basement because we didn't have enough money. To show you that they had they saw the future, they decided to build a whole church. The original church cost $46,000.
Oh my gosh. And that was so much money back then.
Back then. Now, the original St. George is on the path to becoming a national landmark.
Wow.
And it was from the information in the history that I gathered that I, with the blessing of Abuna Raphael and the parish council, I was able to give to the church that bought our church. And God willing, it will become a national landmark.
Oh, how beautiful to be participating in that, to be a part of it.
Oh, it's a wonderful ride.
So how do you do this job? Do you go around interviewing people and you go through boxes of old documents? Do you look at your daddy's old documents? Oh, wow.
I do. I've been through boxes and boxes. I have 3 books that I keep. The first one is called The Giving Book. And in the Giving Book is listed everything that has been donated by different families. But I'd like to tell just one little story. As I was doing this gentleman's name kept coming up. And come to find out, our beautiful religious articles, like the chalice, the vigil lights, would often need polishing. And this individual worked at a plant, and he was a tool and die maker. Father, the very Reverend Father George Aslad would say, this needs buffing and this needs cleaning up. He would take them to the plant and do it. And the only words that came to mind was, for the love of St. George. The St. George Parish is a beautiful parish. And everyone thinks of it as the love of St. George. We're not just people. We're family. They share in your good times and they share in your bad times, and they're there whenever you need them.
That's beautiful. That's how it should be, right? That's how our parishes should be. And that's really wonderful. I enjoyed visiting St. George. It really is a very nice
please
parish.
come back anytime.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. What a nice group of people. Just beautiful. My goodness. And the church itself is very beautiful. It's like an octagon, right? Like it's really, it's neat. It's unusual. It's like very beautiful.
An octagon. It is like an octagon. God bless St. George. That's all I can say.
What a beautiful group of people. What a wonderful parish. And gosh, Margaret, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. This has just been absolutely delightful. And I guess before I let you go, I want to know, do you have any interesting projects coming up? You've been traveling around, I know, with your family for summertime.
Yeah,
you were running around.
We went to the beach for the summer. I thought the grandbabies were going to outgrow it, but they'll never outgrow the beach. Never.
Oh, thank God. That's wonderful.
Thank God.
How old are they now?
They keep a step in our. They keep a skip in our step.
I bet they do. How many grandkids do you have?
We have 4. We have Victoria Margaret, who's 20. And she has the eyes of the cedar of Lebanon. And then we have Natalie Susan, who is 18, and her eyes are the color of the Mediterranean. Oh. Then we have John Joseph, who is 17 and is a spitting image of his daddy, and his eyes are also the cedar of Lebanon. And then we have the baby, who is, I can't even think of my grandbaby's name, Mia Catherine, who is 14, thinking she's going on 21, and is a freshman in high school.
Oh, beautiful.
I will say this, because I know my grandchildren are listening. We hit the jackpot when the 4 of them came.
Thank you.
And I thank our children for blessing us with such beautiful grandbabies.
Well, you are really blessed. You are a fortunate woman, Margaret, in many, many ways.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being on the program. And I'm glad that you were here telling your story, because now it's recorded and your grandchildren can come back to this and play it for their children and their children's children. I love that. I think it's so neat. I think it's wonderful. Well, Margaret, thank you so much for being on the program tonight. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you. All right. And thank you to our audience. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we hope that you'll be coming back next Sunday night to meet another everyday Orthodox Christian. And just as a reminder, this is the conclusion of our 197th episodes. That means that we'll have 2 more everyday Orthodox guests, and then we'll have our 200th episode. And for that one, my daughter Helena is going to come interview me. And so hopefully we won't let too many family secrets slide, but you never know. I do tend to talk too much, so we're going to find out. But at any rate, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week on Everyday Orthodox.